So, today we're going to look at social movements through a completely different lens. And it starts in a place you probably wouldn't expect, the world of athletes. Let's dive in.
You know, it's a question we've all probably asked ourselves at some point. When things get tough, when our institutions feel like they're failing, we seem to have this deep, almost primal need for a champion, a figure of strength to look up to. But why is that?
Well, it turns out the role of the athlete, whether we're talking about a hero carved in stone thousands of years ago or one broadcast across millions of screens today, it's always been about so much more than just the game. It's this timeless archetype we turn to when we need it most.
And here's the answer, really. It's simple but powerful. We look to these figures because they become these visible carriers of our collective stress, our anxieties, our hopes. They're out there, performing strength and control right when we feel like we have none.
So let's trace that evolution, right? How did this role go from being a sacred, almost religious duty to the kind of managed, professional brand we see today?
If you go back to the ancient world, heroes like the Persian champion Rostam weren't just entertainers. Their physical power had cosmic meaning. A victory wasn't just a personal win. No, it was seen as a sign of divine favor, a confirmation that society was on the right track and the world was in order.
And that, right there, was their whole job. In a world full of famine and war and just constant uncertainty, the visible strength of a hero was this incredible form of public reassurance. It was living proof that order could be chaos.
What's really fascinating is how the core psychology of an athlete, the famous 4 C's, has kind of stayed the same but also completely changed. For an ancient warrior, concentration meant staying alive in a fight. Today, it means tuning out a storm of social media. Confidence wasn't about performance stats, it was about a sense of destiny. The fundamentals are there, but the meaning, totally different.
Okay, so if that role has changed so much, why does this hero archetype keep popping up outside of sports, especially when society's in crisis? Well, that brings us to a really key concept. It's this idea called the athlete frontier. This is what happens when a society is under so much strain that it starts to value athletic qualities, like raw endurance, visible dominance, in the social and political arenas. It becomes a space where winning has to be seen, not just debated.
Right, and this athlete frontier, it doesn't just pop up out of thin air. There's a recipe for it, a specific cocktail of pressures. You've got a legitimacy crisis, where trust in the rules just collapses. You have a sense of collective humiliation, where a group desperately needs its pride back. You add in scarcity, high-speed media, and pretty soon, society is looking for heroes to carry its strain.
And this is where it all comes together. This is the big idea of our whole explainer. When that athlete frontier moves into political movements, something fundamental changes. The street itself becomes the arena, the scoreboard.
Think about it. In these situations, the old rule book just gets thrown out the window. It's not about votes anymore, it's about crowds. It's not about legitimacy, it's about noise. Persuasion gets replaced by intimidation. And truth, well, truth gets replaced by pure momentum. The street is the scoreboard, and everyone can see who's winning.
But here's the thing. Not all of these street as scoreboard movements play out the same way. There are actually 4 distinct patterns, 4 strain arcs, as we can call them, that describe how they build and release pressure over time.
All right, first up, we have the spike. This one is all about explosive speed, about changing the entire conversation in an instant.
So the spike, as you can see, is just that, a sudden viral explosion of energy. The goal isn't some long-term systematic change. Nope. The goal is to create this overwhelming, immediate sense of momentum. Think of a viral hashtag or a flash protest that just dominates the news for 24 hours. It's designed to change who looks like they're winning right now.
Okay, pattern number 2 is the cliff. This one is a much slower burn, building up pressure toward one single dramatic breaking point.
Now, the cliff is totally different. It's this long, slow buildup of pressure, on and on and on, and then, boom, a sudden push over the edge. The whole point here is to make the people in power feel like giving in is inevitable, like it's better to just concede now than to risk a total collapse. It's all about forcing a decision.
All right, pattern number 3, the plateau. And this one is a marathon, not a sprint. It's all about endurance.
You can see it right here. The plateau is about maintaining this intense pressure over a really long time. It's not looking for that big, dramatic moment. The goal is to actually normalize a state of fear and intimidation, to wear down and suppress any opposition until it just goes silent. It's how a group can completely own a public space through sheer persistence.
And last but not least, we've got the most chaotic and unpredictable pattern of them all, turbulence.
Turbulence, as the name suggests, just thrives on chaos. Look at that graph. It's all over the place. We're talking irregular spikes, waves of rumors, intense emotional volatility. There's no clear story. The real function here is to crank up the disorder so much that people start begging for any authority to restore order, ideally the very one that's steering the chaos.
Okay, so you might be thinking this is all about protests in the street, right? Well, what's so powerful about this whole framework is how neatly it applies to our digital world too.
And this right here, this is the real kicker. This is where it all clicks into place. A spike on the street, that's a viral trend online. A cliff, where a protest forces a takeover, online, that's a reputation collapse from a coordinated pressure campaign. That plateau of long-term intimidation in a public square becomes chronic, unending harassment online. And turbulence, that's the chaos of memes and disinformation storms. The scoreboard hasn't gone away. It just moved from the street to our screens.
But, and this is a huge but, there's a fundamental flaw in all of these patterns. Because they're built on visibility and momentum instead of trust and policy, they are brilliant at winning moments, but they are structurally terrible at building resilient long-term systems.
So from now on, when you see some movement just blow up on your feed, you've got a new tool to analyze it. You can ask yourself, is this movement actually trying to build lasting policy, or is it just trying to win today's game? Is it building a future, or is it just racking up points on a scoreboard? The difference, as you now know, is everything.